What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Why We Love PlayStation VR. Sitting all the way across the city from me in a much, much nicer apartment is the king of all VR kings, the equal and opposite reaction to all my actions. It's Jeremy King.
This is just a green screen back here.
But it's
Anyways,
an expensive green screen.
It is very expensive. It's silken green screen. And viewing through all the haze and the humidity and the bacteria that's coursing through the air nowadays, on the opposite end of Worcester is good old Brian Parole.
And every week on Why We Love PlayStation VR, we dip into the PSVR archive, we pull out a game at random, we dust the blow off of it, we play the crap out of it, we see if it's been given any love by developers, any updates, any DLC, and then we let you know, the loyal game cats, if it's worth your time. Man, we had that down. Now we don't.
I know. That's true.
What game did we decide to play this week?
What did we decide? Today was End Space. End Space.
I'll just wait till you get caught up.
No, it's Eden tomorrow.
Yeah.
Eden tomorrow.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah.
Eden Tomorrow by Soulpix Studios, released February 12th, 2019. Not crazy old, but that's about a year and a half at this point.
Yeah.
Released for $19.99, going on psprices.com. I found out that it has never once been on sale, ever.
Wow.
Also, just a heads up, it's also never had any updates. So this game is the exact same game it was at launch. No patches, no nothing. All that aside, Jeremy, what kind of game is, God damn it, End Space? What kind of game is Eden Tomorrow?
I would say it's like I can't say action. It's more like an exploration type of a space game, story driven. It's light on the action.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to use the word walking simulator because that always has like a pejorative, association to it. But it is very much, I think, a walking sim that's kind of covered up with some light gameplay elements.
Mm-hmm.
So set it up for me, man. What happens? How did this game start up? What's the story going on here? What's the story going on here?
What's the story going on here? So basically, you're, I don't know, in some pod thing when the game begins and you crash, which I thought was pretty neat. The beginning segment of the game, I thought it was pretty neat. Once you crash, you revive. There's this little, nowadays, like all these games like Destiny and whatever the hell the other shooters are out there, they've always got this little orb dude following you around. And so you got one of them. Newton, we call him, or he calls himself. But that's basically your man in your ear, that dude giving you the directions.
Right. You've lost your memory. Newton's lost his memory.
Yeah.
And so it's the blind leading the blind, basically.
Yep. For the most part, yeah. And you just basically through Newton's scattered teeny little bits of the last traces of what the mission objective were. He's got like a beacon that he can track. And so your first thoughts are, let's just head towards there and uncover what we can as we go and why are we here and what happened.
Yeah. So you're on a mysterious sci-fi planet. There's remnants of a ancient culture. Very quickly you find out that it's inhabited by some dinosaur dragon-like monsters.
Dragon-y things, yeah.
Yeah.
Worms too, some worms.
Right. Let's take this from the top.
Let's do it.
DualShock 4 only.
Yep.
How'd you find that in this? Did it seem appropriate as like an appropriate control scheme?
For the limitations on the what you do in the game, yeah, it was fine. Because there wasn't much. There was no like inventory management or weapons or aiming, anything like that. They did a lot with the head tracking, which was a little frustrating when it came to certain gameplay elements, especially putting in codes with your head and moving around like this. It was just kind of ridiculous. Felt like a dolphin, when they like have trained dolphins to like hit things with their snout.
Right, or when they go, they're explaining something like and at the end they go, nod your head yes if you understood, nod your head no if you don't, and you're like, yeah, I understood.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I wasn't listening, but I really don't want you to say it again. So
right?
just, yes, I understood. Yeah. I thought the DualShock 4 worked really well. Obviously, when you have a full body, you'd like to have maybe arms or forearms at least, or hands or something with move controllers. But the fact that you're actually switching between Space Dude and Newton, because you actually do control Newton for, I don't know, 40% of this game, ish.
Yeah, I'd say about that. Yeah.
And so being able to fly around as Newton with just a analog stick and just like go up and down, left and right, and not really have to worry about like some complicated move controls,
Yep.
for a tiny floating orb. I thought
Hmm.
it worked pretty well.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, let's see. What they basically they have the game broken down almost into, which leads into a complaint. They have the game, so you're interrupted with the gameplay with gameplay. So as you're progressing somewhere and you get to an area where, because there was several segments where you had to slide down a slope,
uh,
but when you approach the area that you're about to slide down, you actually hit the X button to like then initiate the slide down,
yeah,
which then when you're going along a cliff, you have to hit X to initiate the part where you skim along the cliff's edge.
right.
So there was all these gameplay elements that were interrupted by the gameplay. It's like a
Right.
dog chasing its tail. They're like, "What's that?" It just takes off the moment. So I found that a little bit awkward.
Right. When you walk up to a obvious, it's just a hill, and you think you're just gonna
Mhm.
walk down it, and yeah, and then it says push X to initiate. I mean, it doesn't say this, but it basically might as well say hit X to initiate the slide downhill mini game,
Yeah, yeah,
right? And then
basically.
that literally takes 4 seconds. You just go, psh, psh, psh,
Yep.
and then you get to the bottom, and it fades to black again, and then you're, oh, I'm standing up.
Yeah,
And
here we
that
go.
you said that happens for when you shimmy across ledges. That also happens
Yep.
when you have to cross tight, narrow bridges. Like
Hmm.
the size of a 2x4.
Yeah.
And then you kind of have to like turn your head
Mimic
to,
Newton. Yeah,
yeah,
because Newton will float in front of you and be like, "Follow me," and he sounds like a lot like Claptrap. That's almost like they modeled it after him.
hmm,
But he'll be like, "Oh," and so you got to like tilt your head, which you feel like there's never a danger of like actually falling.
ever.
But I did walk off a cliff, so you can fall. Because I
Well,
did that to see if it would blindly stop you or if you would fall. And I'm like, no, they let you die.
well, it's funny that you say that because there's a place later on in the game. Here I am going, oh, this is so ridiculous. Press X to initiate, a stupid event. But then there's a place later on in the game where it says, okay, go back up against the cliff and take a running jump off a cliff toward Newton. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay, cool. And so I go and I back all the way up and I take a running leap right at Newton and I
Hmm.
die.
Yeah.
And then I was like,
Yeah.
well, maybe I did something wrong. I was like,
Yeah.
because I'm jamming on the X, hoping to jump something, and then I do it
Hmm.
again and again, and I'm like, what am I doing wrong? And then
Yeah.
on the fourth try, doing the exact same thing, the press X to jump prompt pops up, which never did before on the exact same attempts. I was like, well, just at this point, just do it for me.
It's funny. I had the same exact issue, except the opposite. So I was running towards the cliff that said X to jump, but I am like maybe 18 feet from the cliff. I'm like, no, not yet.
Yeah,
And so as I get close to the edge, then I hit X. He fucking dies. So then it loads again, which took a lot. It takes a while to load up and get ready again. And I did it again. He died again. And I'm like, this is bullshit.
yeah,
So I literally hit X right when it first said it, even though like I had that distance to go before I even reached the cliff.
right.
And he made it. It was ridiculous. So yeah, I had almost the opposite of you with
Yeah.
that, but
So
the same result.
So basically, anytime they try to inject actual gameplay into this walking simulator, they just fucking fail miserably.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't help when like a lot of the times it's so much on rails. The whole game's so linear, right?
Yeah.
That when they finally let you off the leash and go, oh, here's a huge area. Like you gotta go find 3 things. Go fucking find them in this huge area. You're like,
Hmm.
oh wow, I'm finally off the leash. I can just go explore. Suddenly, I wished, like almost immediately, I wish that I would bring the linearity back because this is
Yeah.
terrible, right? I'm,
Oh
I'm,
yeah.
I'm wandering around. I'm hitting the scan button. I'm checking
Yeah.
what is the UV vision or the infra.
UV. That was almost pointless. The UV vision. I barely
So
used it.
pointless, so
Yeah.
pointless. And I'm scanning, looking for the crap I'm looking for, and it's like just not
Yeah.
there. In some of these environments are gigantic, and I was like, just what are we doing here? What are we
Yeah.
doing?
Right.
This
Yeah.
is not fun. Like, just go. If you want to make a linear game, then just make a linear game and don't give me any of this nonsense.
Yeah. Yeah, because searching could be, I almost dreaded it every time it would come around. Like I'd get to a big open environment and I'm like, oh, it was such a predictable game
Yeah.
you know. And so when you got to a bigger environment, I'm like, here we go. I would start looking, and I'd be like, oh, there's a container. Yeah, I'm gonna have to find 2 more of those. So I better keep an eye on where that one is, because then once you control Newton, you'll at times in the game you'll need to like charge up your like pulse blast thing that he can kind of move debris with.
Yeah.
So you'll have to find these canisters, usually 3 of them, to draw the energy out of them to make your thing burst enough to plow through some sheet of metal so Mike, the human, can progress on. So I mean, that was can be stressful because it was like a wide area of finding 3 different things, and usually one of them on purpose was put somewhere ridiculous.
Right.
So that way you're searching and searching and stretching out this game to be an extra 20 minutes longer because you're searching for that one goddamn item.
Yeah, the same went for the 5 planks that you had to
Oh
find
yeah,
for the dude to shimmy across. It's like
in
just
that anti-gravity zone.
so
Oh yeah,
so obnoxious. I was like,
yeah, yeah.
this isn't fun. Who sat down and played this and was like, oh, they're gonna really enjoy this section.
This can be great. Let's do it again later too. You know?
Right. And it only gets worse because I think there were so many different ways to deliver the story in this game, but one of the ways they deliver the story in this game is by Newton talking, and he just like he'll get there in front of you, the little floating robot orb, and he talks very quickly, but he also has a lot to say. He doesn't take a breath after sentences. Right, he just goes from like one sentence straight into the next, and it's just like nonstop, right? Just like fucking word vomit. It's like just all at you at the same time.
He's like hanging out with your old high school buddy back in the 90s that was ripping coke all night, and he's just like, yeah, and I did this, and everything happened great like this, and then there was this, and it was like that. And it's like, holy fuck. Man.
Yeah, this is the robot companion that we hate in these games. Like,
yeah,
he makes Claptrap look awesome.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
because it would be one thing if they were like, okay, this Newton thing is going to be over here, and he's going to be talking to you as you explore, as you walk around, as you play the game. Right. But instead, they make you just sit there and
stop.
Yeah, like your feet are glued to the floor while he's talking, and you're just like, oh, dude, stop talking.
Same with audio logs. Christ.
Thank you.
And the audio logs would go by like this, you know, and the bar's this big, and you're like, oh my God, she's going to be talking for 2 minutes and 46 seconds.
And you have to stand there. And you just
got to stand there. You know, at least when the audio logs were going, I think you could like at least rotate. And I think when
but that's
Newton was talking, you couldn't even rotate. You just faced him.
Yeah.
Oh,
and it's so inconsistent because there are times when Newton's talking and you're just walking around and you're like, why can't it be like this all the time?
Yeah. I think that would free things up so greatly. It was just every time he spoke, I was like, no, even though I kind of wanted to hear the story because I was curious on what the malfunction of Mother and these entities, those robots, your kid, you know, all this kind of stuff. I was like intrigued by it.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know, but who delivered it is the person I didn't want delivering the words to me. You know?
Yeah, the funny thing is when I went and did some research about this game, I found out that that Soulpix is actually like they were a special effects studio. And that's what they did, like for movies and stuff. And they had this script floating around for an animated movie they wanted to do ever since 2004, and it's Eden Tomorrow. So this was supposed to be just like an animated movie. And I'm like, man, this would have been a much better way to take in that story. It's just like, oh, just deliver it to me in 90 minutes, like, you know, streamlined, and let me watch. Because playing it certainly wasn't any fun. But background on this, this was this studio. They started this game in 2015. It took 3 years, and the team went from 3 people to 15 people over 3 years. So, still a very, very small independent game, which is a little surprising. But you can kind of see their special effects roots because the game actually looks, at least on the Pro, like kind of impressive.
It looked decent on the OG. It sounded like a UFO just landed in your driveway. Actually, it was like,
UFOs on my end.
Yeah, they're coming to take you home.
I had this chip in my neck for a while. You think it's related?
Yeah, they're like, Brian, it's dislodged.
But it's a good looking game, right? And so in some of these environments are pretty big. I think some of the monsters are on the cheesy looking side.
Yeah, they're a little bit. Yeah, I mean, there's only a few. I mean, you got those worm things that were in the beginning and then never came back around again. The dragons were pretty consistent through the entire game. They were your biggest obstacle.
Dragons were okay.
Yeah. Then there was those like 3 little, you know, leaves or whatever sticking out of the ground. And then that umbrella thing would come up and and then go back into the ground. You'd have to sneak past them. There was only like in one area, I believe.
Yeah.
But that was it. I mean, this game, the gameplay and the action is either sneaking along a wall, sliding down a hill, or sneaking by enemies. That's pretty much it. For any kind of action. It was more stealth action at those moments.
It was more stealth, and even the stealth I didn't feel like was really well done at all.
No,
you
no.
did have a sneak button where you could just walk extra slow.
Wicked slow.
So painful, right?
Yeah.
And you could use your scanner to see if there was like stuff on the ground that you had to avoid to not make noise.
Yeah.
And I feel like again, some of that could have been okay, but it just felt so. After you've done it for a couple minutes, it just felt so monotonous to keep doing it. Definitely wasn't terribly impressed with the gameplay. But for a game that looks as good as it does, I thought it was orchestrated really well. I thought the music felt like a big epic sci-fi movie. I thought they blew it out of the water with that. And then the sound effects were like all over the place. It was some of them, some of them sounded decent, and then some of them sounded like horrible with zero 3D audio. It's just like, I was like, I don't have any idea where that dragon roar is coming from. It just sounds like it's here.
Yeah. Never had it didn't give you any perception of where it could be coming from. But I mean, like the growl it would do sometimes had that deep kind of like it sounded big. But the placement of it in your head when you heard the sound diminished because it just came from everywhere instead of like, oh, it's over there,
Yeah. Oh man, I don't know, dude. I mean, do we rate this sucker?
Yeah, I guess it's time to.
I think it's time to rate it. I feel like we blasted through that really fast.
It seems like it, right?
How long did it take you to beat this, roughly?
I would say I lost track a little bit, but around 4. I would say safely 4.5 hours.
Okay, yeah, I'm right around the 5-hour mark. I blasted through it again for this show, and knowing where some of the things were, sped that up a little bit. So I was around like closer to 4.5 hours.
I think my first time playing it, I played for a good, I think it was like 2.5 hours, and then the next time it was about 2 hours, I would say, for the second playthrough.
Yeah.
And that second time playing it.
So what's our rating scale?
All right, 1 is race out, grab this game. It's incredible, absolutely amazing. You love it. 2 is you slow down, wait for a sale, even though it's been out for 1.5 years and there's been no sales. Just hang tight. Maybe in 1.5 years there'll be a sale, and then you can buy it. 3, just don't even bother. Just again, pizza for Brian because he deserves it. Look at him. Look at him.
Famished.
He needs crust in that beard.
Oh.
Yeah. And so, Brian, what do you rate this motherfucker?
Dude, this is I don't think in my entire video game career, if you want to call it that, I have ever played a game for review that I wanted to like more, but hated as much as I hate this game. It's just I started off and I was kind of excited to go back to it because I felt like I was sort of in the minority. I know there was a lot of other YouTubers that thought this game was amazing, or thought it was like really impressive, like sci-fi movie we've been waiting for. I was like, okay, cool. Maybe I missed something. Maybe there's some fun to be had here. And I dove back in and I was like, oh, this is all right. It's kind of fun switching back and forth between characters and some of the early searching for things wasn't so bad because they were kind of in smaller areas. I was like, okay, well, this is not as bad as I remember it. And then as the game went on, it just got worse and worse and worse, and I just got more and more irritated. Listening to Newton talk was just, I mean, really, don't play this game if you're having even close to a bad day. Sometimes video games will take you away from real life problems and make you feel immersed in a world where you can enjoy yourself and have fun.
Yeah.
If you're having a bad day and you go play this, you're gonna want to reach through the VR headset and beat the living fuck out of Newton, like within an hour. Right?
Oh shit.
Yeah. Like if you're an abusive parent, like you will kill this little floating robot. You will. I'm so happy I'm not a parent or an abusive parent at that.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. So, and that's really it. By the time you get to the end of the game, all this searching has gotten so irritating. Where it's like I'm just exploring endlessly, but just finding nothing of any consequence. and then but I do need to find this item and this item and this item to progress the story forward. And then the ultimate fuck you is when the game, the very last scene in the game is,
Oh,
but right, they do it to
yeah,
you again, but then they add a timer to it. And so
yeah.
when you can't find the three things you're looking for, is it three? I forget.
I
But
forget.
but you're desperately searching for these three things like as fast as you possibly can, and
Hmm.
then when you don't do it, because there's no way you're going to do it the first five times, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just aimless wandering. Then
Hmm.
you have to start over from scratch and then start the whole
Dialogue and everything.
everything. It's
Yeah.
so irritating, and I just feel like the people who made this game, and I think very clearly, have never made a game before, and also don't know what make games fun because they had all the ingredients. They just didn't like leave it in the oven long enough,
Yeah.
right? They knew they were building something, but then they just didn't. All the finishing touches didn't come together.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, like I said, I want to love this game, but it's absolutely a three. I had no fun at all playing this the first time or the second time, and
Yeah.
I hate saying that because I really do want to like this one. I hope you have a more optimistic or positive view on this. What did you think of this one?
So, like I was saying earlier, when you first start the game, and they got you in this thing and you don't know what's happening, you hear this disjointed voice coming from somewhere, disembodied sound, and it's like speeding up and slowing down like it's a malfunctioning robot type of a sound. And then you see portions of the ship ripping away, and
Yeah,
you see then all of a sudden you're crashing towards something, and you're like, oh man. And I thought that was pretty epic. I dug the beginning. The controls, the world, everything like that was easy to control. It wasn't complicated. I dug the freedom when you controlled Newton, how you could go up, down, left, right, move forward, fast, you name it,
yeah,
and pick up the things and blast things. And then as Mike, you were pretty limited. You were just moving around and doing your little mini games that you want to do, collecting, you know, um, those things so you could unlock. I don't know, whatever. It's pointless. So you had to do some shit. All that I thought was okay. You know, Hearing Newton speak and deliver the story through him, I thought was abrasive and very hard to swallow. And it was just necessary to get the story, but just the delivery was absolutely abysmal. And again, like you, I wanted to like it. And I remember that, like, my first time playing it, I ended it because I was like, God damn, I had enough. And knowing to go back in because we were going to discuss this to finish it, I was just like, oh, and that's a bad sign right there. And it's like, I was like, shit. So I jump in and I started having a glimpse of enjoyment. I'm like, okay, I get this, like it's all right. I want to see where the story's going. But then a little bit longer into it, I'm like, yeah, this is just ridiculous. It's almost like it was a collection of games that they decided to put together in one package. Like, oh, you get your sliding portion, you get your cliff walk, you get your jumping, like that kind of shit. And they put it all together in one little game, but they didn't um, connect them. You know what I mean? Like they just made it one bunch of mini games over and over and over again. And I just found that, like you, I wanted to love it, and I can't say I hated it, as much as you. I definitely disliked it at times, and where my struggle with the rating is did I dislike it enough to fully warrant a 3, or did I enjoy it enough to give it a very weak 2? And that's where the struggle is, because it wasn't on sale. It's not inexpensive. If this was a $5 game, it's easily a week 2. But being full priced, especially a year and a half later,
yeah.
to recommend to anybody, if I said to, any of these game cats, if they were in my living room and I said, I got a game for you, I got one right here for you. Eat in tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like I would be doing a disservice by recommending, because I feel like, somebody be paying their hard earned money for a game that they would be pretty disappointed about. And again, it's like they got so many things pretty well. They got them decent, but they just didn't. There was something missing. It's like they made a pie or a cake and forgot to add the sugar. Like you were saying, they just didn't bake it enough. There's just something missing. The structure's there. It looks good, but it just doesn't taste good, and it's hard to swallow.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say I got to go with you and say a 3, because I mean, even a week 2, I mean, I can't find $20 worth of enjoyment out of those mini games. But like for 5 or even 8, yeah. But yeah, I got to go with a 3 on this one.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, and I hate this too because these guys are obviously so passionate about what they're doing, and
Yeah.
they're. I feel like if they had a second chance, we talked about what End Space last week and the week before Hypervoid, and said, "Oh man, those were really solid efforts. We can't wait to see what that studio does next." And
Mm-hmm.
and it sounds like I've talked to both studios, and it sounds like they both have ideas or actually projects in the works for their next games. And I'm like,
Nice.
that's really exciting, right?
Yeah.
But when a game like this that costs a studio basically every dollar it had in 3 years of its life, and I have really hard time believing that we're gonna see Soulpix get a chance to make a sequel to this, or
Yeah.
make another game and show what they can do with VR. And that's always like kind of heart wrenching for me. I'm like, oh man, here's a studio that had so many good ideas and it just didn't come together.
Yeah.
And now maybe they won't get another chance to really make a great game. So
Mm-hmm.
that's really sad, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But all right, man. Well, unfortunately, I made you play. I made you play a rough one this week. So
That's
maybe
all right.
maybe I'll make it up to you by letting you play a good game next week.
That's
But
all right, because we did Saints and Sinners a couple weeks ago. We had Ice Separation. We covered some pretty damn good games.
we did.
Yeah.
But you're paying for it now.
Yeah, paying
So
for it now, and not with a quick one either. That one was a doozy.
that was a doozy. Yeah, 5 hours in most games is like, oh, it's not terribly long, but 5 hours
Yeah.
for this game felt excruciatingly painfully long.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did. It's like skateboarding with no sneakers.
Ow.
Oh,
Ow.
painful.
Have you ever done that? That sounds horrible.
No, no. Well, I must have if I know the sensation.
Right? I can actually feel the grip tape on my calluses now. It feels awful. Yeah.
Especially if you try to do a simple pop shove it or an ollie. Oh, yeah.
I was the worst skateboarder ever. I could barely ollie up onto a sidewalk. I was terrible.
Oh, really? I
Yeah.
loved it.
Maybe we'll
That's all
talk
I
about
did.
that in the litter box.
Yeah.
Jeremy, thank you so much for hanging out with me. And thank you, cats, for watching another episode of Why We Love PSVR. Make sure you let us know in the comments below what you thought of Eden Tomorrow. I
Yeah.
mean, it's very possible we're in the minority. But I
Yeah.
would love to hear that people out there are enjoying this game and that they thought it was worth $20. But also let us know what other games you want us to play. The list is long. It keeps getting longer, but
Yep.
longer is always better. For another episode of Why We Love PlayStation VR, my name is Brian Paul.
And I'm Jeremy King.
We'll see you
Next
next
week.
week.